Hello everybody, welcome to StraightA, Dawson here. Back with our final quarterly review. At this point, it's almost near the halfway mark anyway, but our quarterly review still of the AFC NFC West. A lot of good and a lot of bad teams from this one too. I kind of said that from last week, a lot of good, a lot of bad, but this one is a lot of promising ones in between. I will say that. I think there's a lot of teams in here that could have some promises here. And we're going to review them because there's also some very top tier teams in this kind of cardinal direction, I guess. So we're going to first start off with the Kansas City Chiefs, of course. By the way, go tune into the other three videos. They're also, I think, very well made. I think I've kind of talked through some things that I've really enjoyed, as well as just kind of breaking down just things I like seeing from these teams. Of course, I'm recording this after this last game where the 49ers got beaten by the Vikings. So I'm done with week 7. I want to make sure I got that video, so this one may be released later than usual, but we'll see. Beside the point, we got the Kansas City Chiefs up. We're going to take a look at their stats, and I'm really not going to be surprised too much from Patrick Mahomes. He's had some more down games where he's more on the level of other teams, because like 288 yards per game is pretty good, but it's also comparable with some other QBs at this point. But he's doing really well still. That's not to give Patrick Mahomes any crap there, because he's playing very well. He's playing very competent football. Almost 70% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, only taking 7 sacks. That number is probably the most insane to me. And I obviously don't think of him as a quarterback who gets sacked a lot, but like, I'm trying to look back and think, like, man, he hasn't got sacked a lot. They've played 7 games, and he's gotten sacked 7 times. On average, 1 per game. Offensive line have been doing really amazing, just kind of quietly, while also Patrick Mahomes himself is very good at evading. He's not really a scrambling QB, but he's an improviser who just goes out there and does things. And granted, 6 interceptions may be a little high for him, but, like, still not bad at this point in the season. 15 touchdowns again. I mean, like, he's just doing really good. And I think that I can get off the Patrick Mahomes, dick riding here and move forward with the receivers, who honestly, rushing. I forgot, we're getting ahead of myself there. Rushing looks really good. It's going through Isaiah Pacheco. It's not really being spread out as much as it used to. Isaiah Pacheco's the clear guy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is getting a little bit of love too, but like Isaiah Pacheco's getting love, and as he should. 3 touchdowns, 419 yards. Really good so far. 60 yards per game. It's just a good run game they have. They don't need anything amazing. They just need something that's going to help them win the games. And that's what Isaiah Pacheco is doing for the Kansas City Chiefs. Simple to the point. Receiving, I mean, even with a game down, like Travis Kelce has gotten 87.5 yards a game, 525 yards. Notably, though, Rashee Rice might be the new wide receiver 1 here pretty soon with the Kansas City Chiefs, because he is killing it. 305 yards, 43.6 yards per game. Obviously not amazing, but like he's kind of picking up momentum to the point where he might be able to get to the 800, 700, 800 level of the season, where he's going to get those yardage. He got 3 touchdowns while Travis Kelce's got 4. He's right behind him in that regard, so pretty good. 26 receptions, 34 targets, so obviously not as much, almost about a little over half of Travis Kelce's. Travis Kelce's still number 1 there, but he is taking a step down. Just simple to the point. He's just getting, he's getting used to things. And Rashee Rice might be picking up some slack there. And overall, they have some just decent receivers. I think Kadarius Toney is taking a big step down, obviously. But then you have MVS, Justin Watson, all kind of stepping into that role. Sky Moore, I think, is fine, competent. I think they have just competent receivers that just nobody flashy besides Travis Kelce. And that's all really Patrick Mahomes really needs, is just consistently fine guys. Defensively, also, I think have looked good, really good in a lot of regards, but like more so in the not flashy ways. They're just doing consistent football, keeping teams down, and making sure they don't get too much momentum. I mean, just looking at the numbers real quick. I mean, they're not turning over the ball, like they're not getting turnovers. I mean, but they're not really needing to do that. They're stopping teams before they even get there. And let's go ahead and check where they actually end up getting, because I'm actually kind of curious. I haven't looked at this. They're top 10 defense in terms of passing yards. Like, that's really good. They're a top 10 team. Granted, again, bye weeks and blah, blah, blah. But again, they haven't had a bye week yet. But, like, so they could be at, like, 8. Because I think the Jets had a bye week, right? Have they? I can't remember. Bengals have had a bye week. Packers had a bye week. So, like, a couple of these teams have already got, a little bit more deflated stats. But either way, they're a top 10 defense in terms of passing. I'm kind of curious where they're rushing, because I think that's also something to do really good in. And not in top 10. Are they middle of the road? Ooh, let's find out, actually. I don't see them here. Oh, they're about middle of the road. They're probably like bottom half-ish, but like still pretty much middle of the road. 740 yards is still not that bad. Over like 100 yards per game. I guess that's pretty not great, but like Chiefs defense overall is just doing what it needs to do to help the offense make sure they win. Simple to the point. Not really much else to say there. I mean, it's just Chiefs. It's the Chiefs. I mean, what else am I going to really say? They're 6-1. They lost, of course, to the opening to Detroit, which understandable. But looking forward, they're 6-1 right now. I hate to say it in a lot of regards. I don't see them losing many other games. I can see them losing maybe 2 off the top of my head. I see Philadelphia and Buffalo being 2 tough games. They can maybe drop one to either Vegas, Los Angeles, or Denver. They're going to lose one divisional game. They're not going to sweep the whole division the whole time. So give them a loss there. Give them a loss. Give them basically a best 2 out of 3 loss. Sorry, they win 1 game out of Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Los Angeles, or not Los Angeles, Cincinnati. And so they take 2 losses there. That's 3 losses. They're going to get the bye. 13-4. Like, that's me being kind of hesitant because they're not going to lose the Patriots. They're not going to lose most of their division games. They could lose maybe one of those divisional games. But like they're going to probably beat Miami. Miami's struggled in the past. Granted, this is what's called a foreign game. I forgot exactly where it is, but like they could lose. So like 12-5 maybe like the minimum, but 13-4 is what they're looking at, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. Looking at their depth chart, not really suffering from any injuries or any notable injuries. Justin Watson is like the only guy I kind of recognize. Nick Bolton, that's also a very unfortunate one. He's out for a hot minute. Not too long, but like he's out for a hot minute, I believe. I wonder if, I don't know, but he's out for a minute. Overall, it's the Chiefs. They're doing great. Not really much else to say. There's a lot more interesting teams to talk about because Chiefs are just Chiefs. They're chiefing. They're chiefing it up, bro. They're probably going to make playoffs and easily into the conference championship probably, and hopefully lose to whatever team has got momentum on their side. By the way, surprisingly, the second place in this division so far is the Las Vegas Raiders, and this AFC West division is a lot of mediocre. And I'm saying that even about the Denver Broncos, which we'll get to here in a little bit. Las Vegas Raiders, unfortunately, have had the trouble of not having a solid quarterback, the whole time. Jimmy G suffered injury after injury. He's done fine. He's done suitable numbers, but like ever since he's out, Brian Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell, not the answers. I mean, even Jimmy G really wasn't the answers. Allowing too many sacks, 15 sacks total. Josh Jacobs is doing not really good. Devontae Adams is putting up acceptable numbers, if not less so. Jacoby Myers stepping up a little bit. Outside of that, the receiving game, I mean, the offense has just not been doing stuff they need to do. The defense has looked really good. I think people kind of underrate the defense a little bit. Max Crosby, of course, carrying the sacks. I'm not going to argue there. And tackles for loss. But everybody's getting some love there. They're not really turning the ball over from, I remember, 5 interceptions at this point. Like whatever. Not really making anybody fumble. Didn't even recover any fumbles yet. So I'm actually kind of curious where the defense ranks. Because I always say, like, just without looking at any of these numbers, they're a bottom half defense. But I think they're near the upper half of that from what I can recall. Or what I think. Because I think the Raiders defense actually looks decently good a lot of the times. Now, granted, wow, 4th worst rushing defense. So I'm biting my words there. They are not doing very well in the rushing game in terms of defense. Maybe, hopefully, they can save me a little bit here with their passing defense because, yeah, okay. See, passing defense, 13 or 12 yards. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is. The Raiders have on defensively looked promising. I'm not going to say they look great, but, like, they look promising. And granted, like, they're probably asterisks here, top 10 passing offense, well, they're 9 right now. You know, asterisks because, like, bye weeks and stuff like that, but, like, who knows? I think the defense has been doing fine. They haven't been holding the team back by a lot, at least. In terms of schedule, I mean, they're 3-4 at this point. Good God, I cannot keep my mouse from, like, going up and down. They're 3-4. They're not going to win too many more games. I can see them, like, okay, they're 3-4. Detroit lost, 3-5. They're going to split here with New York and New York, 4-6. They're going to lose to Miami, 4-7. They're going to lose to Kansas City more than likely, 4-8. I'm going to give them a loss to Minnesota, 4-9. I'm going to say they pick up a win in Los Angeles, 5-9. Probably a loss to Kansas City, 5-10. And I'll say they maybe win. They split these next 2 wins of Indianapolis and Denver, 6-11. That's roughly where I think they're going to be. Their schedule's fine. Like, it's the middle of the road, but there's some tough teams in between. They got to play Kansas City twice. They may win one of those. Who knows? Actually, didn't even realize in the Kansas City schedule that they play the Raiders twice. So, still, I'm not going to change my Kansas City prediction there. I'm going to go 6-11 is my prediction for them. They could maybe go 7-10, but like 5-12, I don't see them going. So 6-11 seems kind of comfortable for me. uh, especially with the games they have going on and stuff like that. It's hard for me to say much about the Raiders at this point. They're just a bottomly, like below average team. They're going to be that top, like the 25, 24 range of top teams, 26, I don't know, in the whole league. They're not suffering from many injuries on offense, at least, I should say, outside of Jimmy G, which is fortunate and unfortunate. Outside of that, defensively, they are starting to like get a little bit in their the depth issues, but like they're still fine. It's a lot of numbers, but a lot of these names don't really mean a whole lot for the Raiders. Overall, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. I think they're second in this division because the Chargers and Broncos have been having a very poor start to the season. Chargers have been very unlucky. Broncos just been very poor start, straight and to the point, how it is. Kind of getting off the Raiders. I don't want to talk about the Raiders too much. Go back and see where it ranks in my favorite teams ever list if you want to, and that'll explain why. But the Chargers are a little bit more interesting. I like Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's looked good. He hasn't looked amazing. I think a lot of people have dick-rided him this season. But I think he's looked fine. He's 265 yards per game, pretty good. 10 touchdowns, 4 sacks, pretty good ratio there. 15 sacks in the year is fine. I mean, what is that, 2 sacks per game? That's fine. Like, they're doing good on the offensive line. I expected a little bit better from him, but, like, whatever. Obviously, Austin Eckler was out for a little bit, so Joshua Kelly picked up a lot of the yardage, so the run game has been a little bit on the weaker side in terms of average. But on the games that it's going, the running game is getting going. They're 2-4, of course, right now, which I guess I can mention that in a minute. But the receiving is where they're obviously, I think, really taking off. Keenan Allen's the main target, always will be. But Joshua Palmer has been showing out really well for the team. Of course, Mike Williams, hopefully, he gets better. Gerald Everett getting acceptable amount of numbers there. Outside of that, nothing much else. Defensively, this team, I don't want to say underwhelming, because honestly, they're like, again, I'm looking at these numbers and they look good. It feels like they're letting up too many points. So maybe that's more in the secondary than the run game. But, like, it's fine. These are good numbers. These are honestly really good numbers. And it kind of makes me surprised. But 4 turnovers in terms of interceptions. They've recovered all 4 of the fumbles. 5 fumbles, I mean. So they look like they're putting up good numbers. But I'm actually kind of curious where the Chargers actually rank here. This is the passing defense. And, like, they got to be about to say, they feel like they let up so many points. They put up a lot of points, but they let up so many points. And their defense on the secondary seems to just not be doing great. I mean, the defensive line, I got no complaints about them. They're probably pretty good rushing defense, rushing defense, if I had to guess. I'm sure they're, not top 10-ish, maybe. Yeah, top 10-ish. That's where they kind of strive, they do really well in, but, they let up way too many passing yards. Now, granted, I'm kind of curious now what their schedule looks like. What kind of teams have they been playing? I guess I could look back at other teams they played. I'll do that real quick with the Raiders and Chiefs. But, they play Miami, high-octane offense, sure. Minnesota, same case there. Kansas City, same case there, I guess. And they've only played 6 games, so I should note that. But, otherwise, they've only played 3 high-octane teams. And even then, Minnesota's kind of an asterisk. I feel like it's a very beatable team in terms of defensively. Kansas City's divisional matchup. You can take that as you will. Miami's, of course, Miami. So, sure, I guess that makes a lot of sense. But, it's a good run games they've faced, too. Some very good run games that they've actually kind of quelled. Looking at their schedule, I think they're going to go up and up from here. I'm going to say they get a win in Chicago, 3-4. I'm going to say they get a win in New York, 4-4. Take a loss in Detroit, probably 4-5. But take a win in Green Bay, 5-5. Take a loss in Baltimore, a win in New England. Probably split with Denver. I'm going to say they split with Denver for now. Take a loss to the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to say they win against Las Vegas, and they probably end up losing again to the Chiefs, but that could be a 9-8 team. So it's an 8-9, 9-8 season right now for them. I don't see any team really going outside of the Chiefs going positive in this division. I'm going to lean 9-8, probably. No, I'm going to lean 8-9. No, I'm feel much more comfortable saying they're going to lose more games than they're going to win. Yeah, I'm going to go lean 8-9. Again, they have some tough games in between. The coaching staff really just needs to get their head out of the water. And they just haven't looked great, in all honesty. Looking at their depth chart, let's look and see if there's any injuries. I think there's been one of the less injury teams in terms of notable ones. I mean, Mike Williams is obviously notable, but, Corey Linsley, didn't realize he was hurt, actually. Didn't realize that at all. Defensively, I don't really recognize any of these names. They look fine in terms of their injuries. Chargers they're on the up and up, but, again, I think there's a lot of promise here for the Raiders, Raiders, Chargers, and Broncos, and we'll get to the Broncos in a second. But like Chargers and Raiders, they're kind of just that middling teams that are just going to try to do something and hopefully can repair the coaching staff for the Chargers, and the Raiders find a QB, and maybe I don't even know what else they really need, to be honest with you. Defense is doing fine. I'm not too sure. Either way, let's look at the games they've played real quick for the Chargers. They played Miami, lost, reasonable. Tennessee was pretty ugly loss. Minnesota and Las Vegas really needed wins. Lost the next 2 games against Dallas and Kansas City. Very unfortunate win or loss in Dallas, against Dallas, I should say. And of course, I mean, it's Kansas City. You lose Kansas City, makes sense, I guess. Coming off bye week, especially with 2 losses, like it was very unfortunate for them. Looking back, let's go look at the Kansas Raiders first. We'll look at the Raiders first for the schedule. They beat Denver, very close, sure. They got beat by Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Los Angeles, sure. Green Bay, they won. New England, they won. Very needed wins, and they lost against Chicago recently. Very bad win there. It's just not much to say in that regard. Kansas City, you just look at the teams they lost. The Lions, of course, they lost to in the opening matchup. Very close game, though. And they beat Jacksonville, good team. Chicago was a dominant win. Jets were actually a close matchup, but I mean, against the Jets defense, it was one of the Patrick Mahomes' worst games, so give him that credit in terms of like give him one game. Minnesota, good win. Denver, good win. I shouldn't say good win. It was an win. Los Angeles, good win. They've just consistently done things they needed to do. Finally, we can move on to Denver, my team. Of course, if you didn't know, I'm a Denver Broncos fan. Make that very well known. I shouldn't. I really shouldn't. But I don't even know what to say here. Russell Wilson, I mean, looking at that number, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 20 sacks. 20 sacks is a lot, actually. I didn't realize it was that many. That's pretty bad. That's like 3 per game. Not great in terms of the offensive line. I almost said Kareem Hunt. Kareem Jackson is what I was looking at. But Russell Wilson is who I was referring to. 1,500 yards, basically. 214 yards per game. Honestly, less impressive than I thought. I guess these last couple of games brought him down a little bit. Because I thought he had better numbers than that in terms of yards per game. 1,500 is fine. He's playing good. He's just playing consistently good football. I got no complaints about Russell Wilson. He's just doing what Russell Wilson needs to do to help us stay in this league in some way, shape, or form. The run game with Jaleel McLaughlin becoming a very big sensation for our team all of a sudden. Don't know where that came from, but sure. And Javonte Williams now splitting up more of the backfield, and Samaje Perine getting kind of eliminated in that regard. It's promising run game now with the Denver Broncos. Obviously not great numbers in that or the touchdowns. Russell Wilson's throwing enough numbers to kind of make him more respectable in the regard. The offense is not really that much of a problem. They're doing fine. Receiving, again, Courtland Sutton has been actually a lot more loved than people give him credit for. 5 touchdowns. I didn't even realize he got 5 touchdowns so far. That's actually really good. Good for Courtland Sutton. 5 touchdowns, by the way. Sorry, I'm just like circling it. Kind of covered it up, like exactly. Jerry Jeudy, of course, has suffered from some injuries and not getting as much involved. Marvin Mims has had some promising flashes here and there, but still kind of stays quiet. So Courtland Sutton's really the only person getting the love here, it looks like. I guess Samaje Perine was involved for the receiving game, but really hasn't been involved since. Defensively, though, pitiful numbers. Tackles for loss actually isn't that bad. Could be a lot worse. Interception's not great. Forced fumbles not great. They've gotten a lot of fumbles forced on them. I'll tell you that. They're ranked probably the worst in rushing defense. Yeah, I mean by far. Receiving or passing defense, probably is a little bit better. More like bottom 5 rather than just bottom, probably, if I had to guess. Let's see. Yeah, bottom 5, like 3. The defense has just stepped back so much this year, and it's due to losing some key players. It's due to some different coaching schemes of defense and new coaching, head coach. It's rough, and we saw this kind of spiral near the end of last season too. And I wouldn't want to admit it, but Broncos defense was not just the Broncos defense what it used to be by the end of last season, and it's just really hard. It's really hard to say we're the Broncos. There's a lot of promising things. They showed a lot of promising flashes. The defense picked up a little bit this last game against the Packers, but outside of that, they've been struggling. I mean, the Raiders was an ugly loss. The Washington Commanders was a very ugly loss. Miami was their worst loss. Chicago was a much-needed win, even though it was an ugly win. New York was an ugly loss. Kansas City was just an game, like, whatever. And Green Bay was a needed win, but not like the prettiest. It was probably the best we've looked in terms of consistency, I guess. I mean, I guess we looked good in the Commanders game, but like barely, I guess. I don't really know. Unfortunately, Denver Broncos are probably going to end up being last in this whole division because we got some tough games. I'd love to say we're going to beat Kansas City next week. I would love to say that. I'm not going to say that at all. I will say this. I do think the Broncos could surprise Kansas City here. I think it's divisional games always rough, but I mean it could happen. I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos actually did win. This is just genuinely me speaking about football now. It just feels like one of those things. The Denver Broncos have had a lot of bad momentum, and now they're not that bad of. They really are not that bad of a team. It really aren't. And I think the Dolphins game really inflated the numbers on defense. I don't think they're a bottom. Yeah, they're probably bottom 5 still, but they're not like the bottom defense, I don't think, in the league. But it's pretty close still. Looking at the games that got played, though, Kansas City, Buffalo, L's, that's 2-7. Minnesota's probably an L. Cleveland's probably an L. I'm going to say we win 2 the next 3 games, so 5-9 or something like that, 5-10. 5-9. Then I'll say we win 1 of the last 3 games, so 6-11. I feel confident saying we're going to go 6-11. 5-12 is also a very tempting answer here, but I think we get a slight pickup from last season. So I'm going to go solidify 6-11. Las Vegas probably beats us in the tiebreakers and move forward from there. Oof, I'm a little parched. I've been speaking a lot tonight. Cheers on that one. Ooh, a little bit better. Overall, I think the Denver Broncos need to pick up a lot of things on the offseason. They need to figure out something real quick. Maybe with a full offseason, Sean Payton can do something, but outside of that, whatever. Actually, we haven't really suffered from many, injuries. Kareem Jackson did get recently suspended for his behavior, as he should. Tim Patrick has been out this whole time, which has hurt us, but outside of that, whatever. Now, moving on to a much more interesting topic in the NFC West, the 49ers. I'm glad we've done the quarterly review, and I'm glad I did the West last, because the 49ers are now starting to show some very big gaps. They were very promising. Brock Purdy's done what he needed to do. 238 yards per game, pretty good. 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 12 sacks. All those numbers, good. Solid. Run game for CMC, I'll always say this. They got greedy using CMC. They saw CMC, how good he is, but they got greedy real quick. Outside of CMC, they really don't have a rushing game. I mean, they kind of do, obviously, but they don't have that much of a rushing game. Brandon Ayuk actually turned out to be the main target. I thought Debo got a lot more love, and I thought George Kittle get a lot more love, but Brandon Ayuk's the clear number 1 receiver in terms of receptions. Brock Purdy likes him. Good amount of touchdowns in that regard. How many touchdowns does Brock Purdy have again? 11. 11's pretty good. Not quite great numbers, but like still pretty solid. Really helped my voice here. Defensively, they looked really good. And maybe the numbers don't show it here. Yeah, they haven't got many sacks. Or tackles for loss look fine. I wonder how they've done the interceptions. I actually really don't think of them as an interception team, but they get a lot of interceptions, which helps a lot. Forced fumbles? What about forced fumbles? They don't really do much in forced fumbles at all. But very solid. And I'm actually curious where they rank in defensively. Bottom half team in terms of passing yards. Interesting. Probably bottom 10, roughly. Roughly bottom half, we'll say that. Well, rushing, they should be a little bit better, though, in that regard, because I know they don't really allow that many. Yeah, top 5. So they're kind of almost differently in that regard. So I didn't realize how much they really let up passing yards that much. So I'm kind of curious in that regard. But their offense has looked really good, and it's definitely shown some weakness, though. I think the 49ers are now down to earth, and I think they're playing more on the end. So I think they played for the last 5 games very consistently up and near the top echelon of where they can play. Now I think they're playing near the bottom where they play, and I think they're going to find a nice middle ground here for the rest of the season. And don't get me wrong, the 49ers are still one of the best teams in the NFL, but they're showing some weaknesses, and I thought they were one of the best teams in the NFL, couldn't be beaten. Turns out they actually can be very well beaten. They've had some very dominant wins. Pittsburgh is a dominant win. Los Angeles wasn't really a dominant win, but it was a good win. New York was a dominant win. Arizona was a dominant win. We'll say that. Dallas Cowboys, dominant win. close loss to the Cleveland Browns. I don't want to give them too much hate there because Cleveland looked really good that game, even especially on defense, I should say. And Minnesota has really looked good on offense there. So I don't want to bash the 49ers really badly. It's just that statistically, from this last game, they didn't look very good. Minnesota looked very good, and I don't want to give them too much crap in that regard, but they definitely have taken a step back. Like they're not playing, it's quelling these teams like they used to. So that's unfortunate. Looking at the rest of the schedule, though, they don't have the easiest schedule in the world. They're 5-2. I'm still going to give them probably the more of the upside here for a lot of these games. Let's kind of quickly look over. Let's say they take a loss. Let's say they split with Cincinnati and Jacksonville, 6-3. They beat Tampa Bay, 7-3. Beat Seattle, 8-3. Lose against Philadelphia, 8-4. I'm going to still give them. I'm going to give them a clean sweep over Seattle, 9-4. Give them a win over Arizona again, 10-4. Maybe give them a loss to Baltimore, 10-5, and then give them the rest of the wins, 12-5. You can maybe throw in a divisional loss to make them 11-6. That seems a lot really appropriate, 11-6. But I feel much more comfortable saying they're a 12-5 team, just because I feel like a lot of these wins they could still dominate a little bit. And I still think they can probably win a Cincinnati game and a Jacksonville game both. So I'm going to go with 12-5 is what I'm leaning for them, which is 3 more losses for us this season, which is still not bad. But they have some tough schedules. I can see them going 11-6, maybe 10-7. The 49ers really have to pick up and make sure that they're not just going to, keep on going downhill. They really need to win against Cincinnati. That way they can have a bye week with a very, 6-2 record and be refreshed and be ready again. I think that bye week is almost perfect timing for the 49ers to really recoup themselves to get back in the flow of things. In terms of, not their roster, their depth chart, let's look at their injuries. Deebo Samuel's actually out. I didn't realize he was out. Maybe I mixed up CMC and Deebo's injuries or something, because I thought CMC was hurt more than Deebo, but oh well. Otherwise, doesn't look like they have any notable injuries or too much. Trent Williams is actually out too. Did not realize that, so that's a notable injury. Crap. Huh. Other than that, though, offensively they're suffering from some injuries, so they need to figure out some answers and how they're gonna, substitute that, I guess. Outside of that, that's 49ers. Seahawks, very promising team. I think had a slow start. People were kind of worried about them in the beginning. I think they look a lot better now. Geno Smith has looked like Geno Smith need to be. 231 yards per game. Sure, he's done great. He's done good. Kenneth Walker has been absolutely amazing on the ground. They have really revitalized the offense for the run game for Seattle. Looks really good. Receiving, obviously DK's leading it, but Tyler Lockett's right behind him. Really good receiving game in that regard. Sorry, I didn't even look at Geno's other numbers. 7 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. At this point in the season is really bad. Sacks are acceptable, more on the average range, probably better, well, above average range probably. In terms of the defense, which I don't think has been putting up numbers, but has been looked good. It's looked fine, especially secondary-wise. Defensive line has actually done some work, though, too. I will give them that. 4 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, 3 recoveries, so 7 turnovers total they've done. I'm actually kind of curious where they rank now. One of the best rushing defenses, that's for sure. That's what it's looking like. And where do they rank in the passing defenses? It should be in the top half, shouldn't it? Or am I just blind? Yeah, they're right there. They're like top half. So their defense, again, secondary-wise, they've looked good. I guess less good than I'm giving them credit for. But apparently the defensive line has really stepped up this year, which, I mean, I guess is not a big surprise. They've always kind of been good on the defensive line. Probably more due to team scheme, but, I mean, they've had some good linebackers there and good D tackles. So, give them their flowers in that regard. But they just look consistently good. They've no big complaints about the Seattle Seahawks this year. I mean, looking at their past games, they lost the Rams, which was an ugly loss, but the Rams looked really good. They had a really good game. They won against Detroit, which was an unexpected game. They've won games against Carolina and New York, which they needed to. They lost barely to Cincinnati, who's kind of on the up and up, but still they they lost to them and they competed with a good team. And they won against Arizona in an acceptable manner. They're just playing consistently good football. Now, with that said, looking at the schedule, they are in a tough division. In terms of the Rams are a sneaky good team. Arizona Cardinals can randomly split with you sometimes, and the 49ers are just the 49ers. Simple to the point, they're 4-2 right now. They probably split the next 2 games, 5-3. Win against Washington, 6-3. I'm gonna say they take a win against Los Angeles. It's tough, but I'm gonna say they take a win. But then I see them losing the next 4 games, 7-7 at that point. I'm gonna say they're gonna win 2 of these last 3 games. 9-8, because I can see them beating Tennessee. I can also see Tennessee beating them. I see Pittsburgh doing the same thing. I can see Arizona randomly getting a win. 9-8 feels good for me for Seattle Seahawks. I think they're playing fine, but I don't think they're up the echelon of where they're 10-7. 9-8 feels really good with a tough schedule, especially from week. Honestly, you could even say week 11 to week 15. They have a really tough schedule. In terms of their injuries, I don't remember anything on top of my head. Zach Charbonnet, I didn't realize was out. DK Metcalf is out for the foreseeable future. Wow, they're suffering from a lot of injuries, it looks like. So, depth-wise, wow. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 players. That's whack. I know I did not just say whack on a video. My God. Kill me now. No. Overall, the Seahawks are just a good team. Solid team. I like what I'm seeing from the Seahawks. I just don't know if they're in that upper echelon. Maybe they secure a 7 seed, but I see them go 9-8. Meanwhile, from a team I really, really have a lot of promise for, honest to God, I wish that they've looked better than they have. Because look at the numbers Matthew Stafford's putting up, 272 yards per game. Now, granted, touchdowns have been really light. Didn't realize how light the touchdowns have been, actually. And 6 interceptions, 18 sacks, kind of some numbers there. I wish the touchdowns were more to make the interceptions look less good or less bad. And the offensive line, obviously, is doing fine-ish for them. But, man, their run game when Kyron Williams was going, obviously I think he's still hurt for a couple more weeks. 2 more weeks, I believe, or something like that. I can't remember. I don't remember all this stuff on top of my head. It looked really good, and now they're kind of reduced a lot on the run game, which really hurts them because they were doing really good. Kyron Williams was killing it, and now he's not, obviously. But the notable story here is obviously Puka Nacua. Easily a wide receiver 1 almost anywhere else, it feels like, from what he's getting. And Matthew Stafford's making him look like it. 752 yards. Is that the leading receiver in the NFL? That may be the leading receiver in the NFL, and that's kind of nuts. I might look. Actually, you know what? 2023 NFL receiving leaders. I'm actually kind of very curious now. Whether Puka is leading in yards, even over. Oh no, he's not. Okay, just receptions, might be. Yeah, I guess I forgot about Tyreek Hill, and AJ Brown probably recently overtook him. But still, top 5 receiver for a guy that I think he got in the 3rd round. I forgot exactly where Puka Nacua. Does it tell me? Let's see. I'm actually kind of curious. I'll actually look this up. He's a 5th round pick. That's crazy. Handsome guy, by the way. Heck yeah. Just absolutely killing it. Matthew Stafford, I think, last year showed, he suffered from a little bit of injury. 60% completion rate is still not great, but like he's putting up the numbers that he needs to and keeping this team in offensively. Now defensively, they are a very mixed bag. They're probably not putting many numbers at all. Aaron Donald's kind of past his prime almost at this point. Interceptions, I'm not surprised there. The defense is very, very poor. I'll just say that. I won't even probably need this to really justify it, but I'd be very surprised if they're outside the top 10 on defensive stuff. Which, wow, they're in the bottom half, but like in terms of passing yards defensively, pretty good. I'm very surprised in that regard. And actually, that was where I thought they would suffer the most, but they're actually worse in their rushing defense, which is kind of surprising to me. They're fine. The defense obviously is doing something right, but obviously I don't think they're doing enough to really help the offense keep in some of these games. And speaking of some of these games, I mean they've had some reasonable losses, I should say. I don't think they've lost a game they shouldn't have, if that makes sense. I think they've won every game they should have and lost every game they should have. Seattle, I think, was a pretty close game. I think you can say that either way. San Francisco, Cincinnati, and Philadelphia, all reasonable losses to really good teams. Indianapolis was a close game, kind of ugly in that sense, but they did end up winning. Arizona, same case there, but they won really handily. Pittsburgh's the one you can kind of throw up in the air. I think Pittsburgh, if you told me in week 1, like, oh, who do you think's going to win, Rams or Steelers? Probably say Steelers. But, it's also an up-in-the-air game. With that said, they still have a very hard road ahead of them, very middling teams. I think they don't have any easy victories besides maybe like 2 I see here on top of my head, 3 maybe. They've probably taken nailed at Dallas. Dallas is not doing as well as it used to, but they're keeping pressure on teams. So what are they, 3-4? Sorry, they're 3-4 currently. So 3-5 with Dallas. Probably win against Green Bay, 4-5. We'll see after the bye week they pick up a victory against Seattle and a victory against Arizona, 6-5, but they take a loss to the next 2 teams, 6-7. I really want to give Washington a win here. Honestly, God, I could see them doing it, and I'm going to do. They split the next 2 games, so 7 and 8. I think they win against New York, and I think they lose against San Fran, making them just out of the 50 range. I think 8 and 9 feels very solid for them, because I think they're going to pick up some wins here that could be kind of surprising to some people. But I also think they're going to pick up quite a few L's just in the inconsistency they have, and I have a feeling they're going to have some big trouble, especially near the end of the season. I don't feel like they're going to have the momentum as they have had the whole season, which is unfortunate because I like the Rams. I like the Rams a lot. Actually, injuries. I don't hear much about their injuries at all, which is because they don't have many. They really don't have anybody notable except Stetson Bennett, which isn't really notable unless Matthew Stafford goes down. So good for them. Heck yeah. Oh, Kyron Williams, I guess, is over here. Wait, why is he not on the running back things? Huh. So he's only in the special teams right now? Weird. Okay, cool. The Rams, I actually really like, and I think their future is actually going to recover a lot quicker than people give them credit for, and they could easily be a Super Bowl contender here again in the next 2 years if they keep it up. And we'll finally end off with the unremarkable Arizona Cardinals. I think they had a very promising start to the season in terms of they looked really good and really promising, and people were actually not doubting them as much, but now they're still 1 and 6. That's how that kind of goes. Josh Dobbs has been actually kind of incredible for what we thought of him. 194 yards per game is nothing crazy, but he's played consistently good football. 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Granted, touchdowns are quite down, I will say. 15 sacks isn't the best number in the world, but it's also not the worst. Looking at the rushing game, it's actually Joshua Dobbs was rushing for a whole lot more. 232 yards. Holy crap. Good for him. James Conner, when he was healthy, was doing fine. He was doing acceptable work. Now it's kind of getting split off, and it's doing fine. Rushing game's doing fine for them. Receiving, Marquise Brown is doing the most stuff. Michael Wilson's getting a lot of love, though. He's getting a lot of targets and a lot of big bombs. Zach Ertz is getting a little bit of love. Trey McBride is even getting a little bit of love. 2 tight end offense. Cardinals have looked good. Just looked good. I'm not going to give them too many roses, but like, hey, you know what? They got some credit. And defensively, they also have looked decently well. They haven't looked like a trash team. They've looked like they competed. But, I mean, the numbers aren't exactly there compared to a lot of these other teams, so nothing too remarkable in that regard. And I'm sure they're still down near the bottom half of a lot of these lists. I mean, bottom half in rushing defense, which that doesn't surprise me. But their passing should be a bit better. They should be ranked a little bit higher in terms of defensively passing yards, but not too much higher. Yeah, about bottom 10. Sure. Doesn't surprise me too much. They face off against good teams. Speaking of those good teams, the Commanders, New York, Dallas, San Fran, Cincinnati, Los Angeles, Seattle, especially the last 5 games, they faced off against really good teams. And, no one really expected them to win any of these games. They probably should have won against the Giants, to be honest with you. But outside of that, they don't really keep it close. They could have won against the Commanders. They could have gone 3-0. Honest to God, they really could have. They picked up a really weird win against Dallas, I guess. That was kind of strange. But, they're 1 and 6. I don't see them going. Honestly, I still think some people actually thought they could go higher than 2 and 15 at that point. 'Cause I think that's what was acceptable going into the season with the Arizona Cardinals being 2 and 15. But looking at the schedule now, they can pick up a couple more wins, but I don't see them winning. I can see them winning one of these games randomly. It feels like they can win an Atlanta game, or randomly upset Pittsburgh or Baltimore. Feels like they can kind of do that, but okay, I'm gonna give them only one win here. 2 and 12 or 2 and 13 or 2 and 11? Sorry, 2 and 11 at that point. And looking at this, I'll give them one more win. I think they're gonna be a 3 and 14 team. That sounds about right for me. 2 and 15 is also very tempting. I'll be fully honest with you; they could be very well 2 and 15, but I'm gonna give them a little bit extra credit and say they pick up an extra couple wins. It doesn't feel like they can finish these games. Is what holding me back from that. But I feel like they can manage 2 more wins in this whole time span and the teams they play. Chicago will be a close one. Honestly, 2 and 15 is looking more and more tempting because I don't see them. That's the only game I really have confidence in them winning. And honestly, it's kind of just a guess whether they can win the next 7 games or so, or one of the next 6 games. Sorry. So I'm gonna give them 3 and 14. That's my predictions for the Arizona Cardinals. But they're gonna be suffering for a hot minute until Kyler really gets back. And then again, Kyler coming back maybe helps me a little bit put in the 3 and 14. Maybe if he actually does it. Either way, that's kind of my quarterly review of the AFC NFC West. Love this. I love that Cardinal direction. I really like a lot of the West Coast teams. I think there's a lot of promise, but also a lot of fun. I think these teams are more fun. For some reason, I think the Western Coast teams are just more fun to talk about, more fun to watch overall. None of these teams I really just hate watching, except maybe the Denver Broncos, but that's only because I'm a fan, I think. All these teams have some sort of promising feature to them. Well, I think there's a lot of teams that are just more mediocre, and it's like, eh. Like, I'm not a big fan of, like, the Commanders or Cardinals, or not Cardinals, sorry, the Commanders, the Falcons, the Saints. The Saints can be fun at times. Falcons can be kind of interesting. But it feels like the Western Coast feels a lot more interesting. And I think I'm going to try to do a halfway point review. I may do that a little bit differently and split that up into AFC, NFC, or something like that. Or maybe I do it with the boys and we just talk about certain things. There's a couple ideas I'm running through my head still about what I want to do with that. But I'll probably do it after Week 9 or something along those lines. So keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye on the other series. We're doing some quiz videos. Again, I got another series I'm recording. Haven't gotten to record it tonight. Probably actually won't. Really was optimistic about doing it, but I'm really tired at this point. My voice is starting to lose it a little bit, so kind of just feeling like I want to go and sleep. But I've been really enjoying this channel. Been enjoying hanging out with the guys. Really, honestly, and this is kind of a thing that no one's even going to listen to be honest with you, but I'm going to say it anyway. This channel has gotten me a lot closer with the guys that are in the channel. Taylor, Ryan, Ben, and Trayson. All four of those guys I'd call some of my best friends because I love them and I really care about them. And this channel, fantasy football and everything, has really made me more close to them. And I've really, really enjoyed that. And I'm glad that I've gotten to share this experience with them, even though I'm putting all the hard work in terms of making this channel go. But I've really enjoyed it. It's been a good distraction for me in terms of things going forward and life hitting me, because I'm 22, finishing up my master's degree. What am I going to do with my life? There's a couple of things, obviously doctoral programs I could go to, what regular job I could do. I'm not too sure, but like this has been a good avenue for me to explore and actually kind of enjoy. So I want to thank you guys, anybody that tunes into this video and even watches this far. Thank you guys for watching, seriously, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of the content. Stay tuned for more. StraightA Dawson, out.